Coming up, real life football trades on the Betfair exchange and on the correct score market, including some trades which don't go to plan. Go grab a nice cold beer or an Irish coffee and let's get into it. We've got a Europa League match here with Leverkusen against West Ham, and Leverkusen here strong odds on favourite, and also the market's really favouring goals, 1.63 on over 2.5 goals. So let me show you what we covered in the correct score market. And in fact, you know what, let's quickly go back to the match odds market. Let me show you something. Look, if we're going to back Leverkusen, £100 stake, it's going to give us £43 of profit potential. But head to that correct score market, that same £100 stake pretty much back in Leverkusen has increased to a £63 profit potential. But also we've got our plan B in there, the 0-1 to West Ham, and also that 1-1, and also we've got the ability to trade depending how that match is going to develop. So anyway, it's going to be interesting. Strap yourself in. It's Leverkusen against West Ham from the Europa League. Just reached half time in this one. It is Leverkusen 0, West Ham 0, and you can see that price on Leverkusen still there, still pretty short. This is how the correct score market is currently looking. So we're in a pretty good position because remember, we've got 0-1 and 1-0 covered. So any goal puts us on a green scoreline and we can potentially take action at that particular point. Are we worried about the 0-0? I've just had a quick look at the XG off the screen, and I can see that the XG is indicating Leverkusen should be 2-0 up. So we are pretty confident of getting a goal in this one. No need to worry about that 0-0. And let's see what happens. Let's see what happens in the second half. It is 0-0 at half time. It's taken till the 85th minute, but we finally got the breakthrough. It's Bayer Leverkusen 1, West Ham 0. We're on that 1-0 scoreline, as you can see. We've got 28 to potentially lock in. But anyway, we're going to try and see what we can do about leveraging this up to a bigger profit. Okay, so let's just put in a lay in the market, which is going to remove all the risk at the same time. So all the risk is going to be gone once that's taken. And it will put us in a position where that second goal will be the money goal. Okay, it should leverage us up very nicely. Anyway, trying to get that taken. The market's bouncing around. It's slowly but surely being taken, as you can see. And maybe we're not going to get it taken on this clip, but anyway, you can see the lay is in there at 1.37. and anyway, we're here. We finally got the goal that we were expecting. We've been expecting that one for a long time. Bayer Leverkusen 1, West Ham 0. We're heading into the final stages of this one, and we're looking for another goal to increase our profits. 91 minutes on the clock. Leverkusen have doubled the lead. It is now 2-0 to Leverkusen. As you can see, we're on that 2-0 scoreline. Not really much action that we probably need to take. It's probably the final goal of the match. But anyway, let's go in with just another lay and just sacrifice a little bit of that profit. If we can get a bonus goal, that would be very, very nice. But as you can see, we've landed on that 2-0 and 154 profit if it remains 2-0 to Leverkusen. And if not, 2-1. We've got 263, and the same for the 3-0 and the 3-1. Okay, so anyway, you saw at half time that we weren't worried about the 0-0 on this one. The XG was telling us that this should be a 2-0 win to Leverkusen, and here we are, late stages, 2-0 to Leverkusen. And you saw, most importantly, how we leveraged up the trade. Okay, we took the profit that was on the 1-0 and we leveraged it up to put it on the next possible score lines, and we've come out with a very nice profit. Okay, £100 of risk, looking like a 150% return on our stake, which is very nice when you're trading football. So that is pretty much it. Okay, I think that's going to be the final score. Leverkusen 2, West Ham 0. So it's fair to say that that match of Leverkusen and West Ham, it might be a bit of a cliche, but it's definitely a good example of patience being a virtue. Okay, the Leverkusen opening goal did arrive pretty late, and there might have been a lot of people freaking out about that and trying to maybe get out of the trade early or just think of other stuff they could do. However, we were pretty confident of getting the goal. Okay, we could see from the XG at halftime that Leverkusen were well overdue the goal. And of course, if you were really worried about the 0-0, there is stuff you can do in the correct score market. Now, for me, I wasn't worried about the 0-0 in this match at all. That's not to say it wasn't going to finish 0-0, okay? It could have finished 0-0, and you just be willing to just take the loss, okay, if it came. If it did finish 0-0, even though everything else was indicating otherwise, you just have to take that loss, move on to the next one, okay? I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you have a loss, it's not the end of the world, all right? There's a lot of people out here who just seem to be so afraid of taking a loss, they'd almost not want to trade at all. But anyway, this one, yeah, definitely a good example. Patience is a virtue, but also just to keep in mind, I mean, look, when Leverkusen went 1-0 up, and it was so late in the match, you might have been inclined to just leave it, okay? We still had a lot of the other score lines covered, so you might just leave it at that point. But I would say always try and leverage up. Try and look for the next goal, okay? I've laid correct scores well below 1.10 and seen further goals, and you leverage up very, very nicely. You never know when that late bonus goal is going to come. And so always put yourself in a position to leverage up. And it worked out very, very nicely in that particular match, as you saw there, okay? So we laid off the 1-0, and we were in a position where we were going to make a profit on that 1-0, but we pretty much, what was it, 6x'd or 7x'd that profit by getting that second goal and leveraged it up very, very nicely, okay? So anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. You don't necessarily have to do it, but it worked out very nicely on this particular trade, okay? So Leverkusen against West Ham, 150% return on our initial risk. And don't forget, if you are liking the look of correct score trading, you want to know how to take it to the next level, learn this in much more detail, then you can download this prospectus book for correct score mastery. It's free to download by clicking the link in the description or just scanning that QR code, okay? We're going to leave the QR code on the screen all the way through the video so you can do it at any point. And this book will definitely put you on the right path towards learning and mastering the correct score market. And we're going to show you everything you can potentially learn about this market, and you're going to get a much more clearer idea about it all. So if correct score trading interests you in any way, then just get this free download. It's absolutely free to check out. As said, click the link below, fill in your best email address, and we're going to email it right to you. Click the we'll scan the QR code and then put in your best email address, and we will email it right to you. You should have it in your inbox by the end of the video, okay? So that's for those who want to take this to the next level. Anyway, that was an interesting trade, and we've got much more where that one came from. This one is going to be very interesting too. Go grab another nice cold beer and let's get into it. And we're about 5 minutes from kickoff on this one with Hertha Berlin against Hansa Rostock from Bundesliga 2. We've got Hertha Berlin there as a odds-on favourite, 1.86. And the markets are expecting a lively one. We're expecting goals in this one, 1.6. So that is pretty good as well. So anyway, we are covering an awful lot of the scorelines: 1-0, 1-1, 2-0, 2-1, 3-0 and 3-1. And as you can see, we've got bigger profits on those higher scores, okay? So anyway, just about to kick off. Let's see how it develops in play. Half time here, it's 2-0 to Hertha Berlin. So that is both good and bad for us, really. We've obviously missed out on taking any sort of action on the lower score lines, like the 1-0 to Hertha Berlin. However, we're still in action, okay? We've still got green on these score lines as it stands. And so we're going to anticipate that there's going to be more goals in this one, and we want to obviously try and put as much profit on those bigger score lines. That was the target for this one. So anyway, going to lay off this score line, the 2-0, put it down to 0, and it's going to lower our risk on the market, bump up the profits on those other score lines also. And we're going to see how the second half plays out. Now, we could also cash this out for close to 30% return, okay? So just pointing that out just to show you that if you are someone who's interested in the correct score market, there's usually lots of opportunity to take profits, okay? If you're not liking this scenario of Hertha Berlin being 2-0 up at half time and there's too many goals too soon, you could just take the profit and get out. But anyway, just wanted to show you that. Let's see how the second half develops. 61 minutes on the clock. Hertha Berlin have got a third goal. They're 3-0 up on Hansa Rostock. And for our trade, that is probably time to exit. Now, we've got £202 of green on that 3-0 scoreline. But we're only going to lock in around, well, the amounts you can see in. So around £35 of it. And you might be looking at that thinking, well, that's not right. We've hit that score. £200 of green on it, and that's all we can lock in. Well, in this case, that is about right, and that is because the goals that we were expecting in this match have just come too early, okay? And the markets are anticipating that there's still going to be more goals. As you can see, any other home win is around evens, so that's what the markets are thinking at the moment, and is 3-0 is still the second favourite. So anyway, that trade on 3-0 as well, we backed it at 19. Out at 3, and we're trading out that 3-1 as well. So anyway, that can happen when you're trading the correct score market. Sometimes you can get it almost too right. You can call it right like we did, but the goals just arrive too early. Ideally, you want to be hitting your final target scoreline later in the match, okay? After 70 minutes at least. The later the better. If you hit it early in the match, the markets are still going to expect more goals, and the green you can take out of the profits is going to be slightly limited. But anyway, I just want to explain that. It's not all bad news. We still made a profit, okay? You saw how the match developed. We lowered our risk down. Worst case scenario at one point was only an 80% risk, and we've gained, in the end, 35%, okay? So, yep, slightly different trade. And just a good example and something to look out for if you're trading the correct score market. If those goals arrive early, you might have to take a smaller profit. In some circumstances, you might even have to take a loss. But anyway, we've come out with a profit. It's 3-0 to Hertha Berlin, and that is it. And I do believe it did finish 4-0 to Hertha Berlin in the end on that one. But look, as you saw in that clip, there's not really much more to explain, which wasn't already well explained in the clip. But you saw what we did. We tried to push it, okay? It was 2-0 at half-time. We obviously put that 2-0 down to 0. We had a nice bit of green on the 3-0 to Hertha Berlin, and they just hit that score too early. So we did try and push it. If that was a 3-0 much later in the match, we're going to lock in a substantially bigger profit. But as it was, if you look closely at that clip, the profit that was available at half time, we kind of took a very similar profit, even though we tried to push for a higher one. So it didn't affect us that negatively. Okay, we actually ended up with a little bit more profit than was available at half time. But the bottom line is that an early exit is sometimes needed. And I did mention it just now as well. Sometimes you can get in these situations and actually have to take a loss because the goals have just flown in so quickly. And I do get a lot of emails about that with regards to people trading the correct score market, and it can be one of the big misunderstandings of trading the correct score market, thinking, well, if I cover 3-0 and 3-1, if they go 3-0 up, then I'm going to be cashing out lots and lots of profits. But if they're going 3-0 up early on in the game, well, the markets are always going to anticipate more goals, and it's not going to trade at a low enough price for you to lock in good potential profits. So you've got to keep that in mind. It's just one of the nuances of the correct score market. But anyway, we did what we could in that trade, and in the end, we still had a positive outcome. So it wasn't that bad in the end. We've got a match here from the Europa Conference. It's just about to kick off. It's Aston Villa against Lille. Aston Villa an odds-on favourite here at 1.82. And looking at that goal market, it's pretty even, okay? Over and under 2.5 goals. But anyway, we're obviously backing a lot of scores in favour of Aston Villa with our plan B covering that 1-1 scoreline. Should they maybe get into a bit of trouble. We are expecting goals to be scored in this one, which is why we're not going to bother really covering the 0-0 or the 0-1. And also, we got bigger green on the bigger score lines, 3-0 and 3-1 with almost 3 times as much green. Okay, so the idea is that we want to try and see if we can hit those. But if not, we've got green to play with on the lower scores. Anyway, it's just about to kick off. Let's see what happens as it progresses. We just reached half time, and Aston Villa are leading in this one, leading 1-0, which is very good for us. And we're on that 1-0 scoreline. We've got some green on that. Now, we're not expecting it to stay 1-0, so we can lay off this 1-0 scoreline, put it down pretty much to break even, which is going to boost up profits on the other scores and lower the overall risk on the trade. And I've put that in there at 5.1. It should get taken in just a moment. It might not get taken while we're recording this clip, but you can see it there. It will get taken early stages of the second half. But as you can see, so far so good, really, because we are trying to get onto those higher scores, the 3-0 or the 3-1. So to be 1-0 at half-time means we're almost halfway there. Anyway, that lay of 5.1, some of it's been taken, the rest will be taken shortly. Let's see what happens in the second half. It's Aston Villa 1, Lille 0 at half-time. 58 minutes in, it's now Aston Villa 2, Lille 0. So it's looking very comfortable for Aston Villa. We're now on that 2-0 scoreline, £70 of green on it. We're definitely expecting more goals in this. So we're going to be laying off that 2-0, which will put us in a very nice position with the green on the other scorelines, with a nice bit of green on the 2-1, even more green on that 3-0 and the 3-1 as well. So yeah, that's just been taken and that's in the market, and now we've got our risk down substantially as well. Okay, so our risk on this whole trade has been pretty much halved, and just to show you, it's a pretty nice cash out also. So we're not going to be taking the cash out. We're going to try and see if we can get onto these upper score lines, and we'll see what happens from there. It's Aston Villa 2, Lille 0. We just had another goal in this one. Lille have pulled one back, or have they? Okay, there is what looks like a VAR check going on. If the goal is confirmed, it's going to be 2-1 to Aston Villa. But this is something to highlight. When there is a VAR check going on, don't take any action in the market, okay? Because your bets are probably going to get reset if the goal is chalked off. And even if the goal isn't chalked off, the prices are not going to be correct in the market. So if the market is not looking right, don't take any action. Right now there's a VAR check into this goal, and we're going to find out very soon whether it's going to stand or not, and then we will take the action. But when the market looks like this, stay away, okay? We're going to find out in just a moment. We'll be right back. And that goal was indeed chalked off. It was offside for Lille, and so we are back on the 2-0 scoreline. Okay, so just an update there, and just another little tip for those who are new to the Betfair markets. That's something to be aware of when a VAR check is going on. So anyway, Aston Villa 2, Lille 0. 85 minutes on the clock. Lille have scored. It's 2-1. So this one is definitely going to count. And what we're going to do, we've got to move quickly in these late stages. As you can see, we're a little bit vulnerable if Lille do go and get another one. So we're going to lay off all of the risk. So there's no further risk in the market. Always protect your bank. That's the rule number one with correct score trading. You don't want to come this far and then 2 quick goals for Lille. Suddenly we're losing money. Anyway, that puts us in a position where we now know we're not going to lose money on this, and we've got our 2 target score lines, and we're going to let these run. Okay, 2-1 to Aston Villa will give us £81 of profit, and if we can get a third goal for Aston Villa, that's where we're going to hit some nice profits. But anyway, that's pretty much it. We're not going to lose money on this one. It's just a matter of how much we can potentially make on this. So let's see what happens next. Aston Villa 2, Lille 1. Almost lost track of the score because it's not at the top. Anyway, let's see how this one ends. So we're in the late stages of this one. We are still on the Aston Villa 2, Lille 1 scoreline, and that's probably going to be it. Okay, Ollie Watkins gave him the lead, 13 minutes. You saw at half-time we traded out that 1-0, and then Aston Villa doubled the lead to make it 2-0 on 56 minutes. We traded that out as well. We had that Lille goal early, which was chalked off with VAR. Then they pulled one back on 84 minutes, which was actually even better for us, okay, because then we could trade out at lower odds. Okay, when you're trading the correct score market, the later the goals arrive, the better. Okay, it might get a little bit more stressful waiting around for them, but the later the goals, the better. So anyway, we've come out with this with an £81 profit, which is pretty much an 81% return on our risk, and that's the best way to look at it. Always look at it as a percentage return on your stake. So we're out of this one. Aston Villa 2, Lille 1. And that match there with Aston Villa and Lille is definitely a good example of when you're trading the correct score market, it can be very, very comfortable when it does go to plan. When you're trading the correct score market, you picked out your correct scores. We've obviously favoured Aston Villa. They're winning 1-0, then they go 2-0 up, and it's late in the second half. pretty comfortable when it goes in that direction. It's not very stressful at all. There's not that many decisions you need to make when it's actually going to plan. So just pointing that out with regards to trading the correct score market, it's not as complex as it might initially seem. And that particular trade was good. And one of the main reasons it was good was because the risk was minimized pretty early on, okay, by the, what was it, the second or the third goal. I mean, we were down to risking only half of our stake, but our profit potential was much, much higher. In the end, we made a 80 pounds profit. So we entered the match with 100% risk. We made an 80% return. However, during the match, we got our risk down to just 50%, still made that 80% return. And if we would have got just another goal to Aston Villa, then we were looking at close to a 200% return. So again, this is the type of trading that is very, very good for the mindset. It's a risk reward ratio which is very sustainable with regards to, you might lose a match, but in your very next trade after that, you could win it all back and much more. And a lot of people do like to trade like that. It's never that fun to have a loss and then have to know that you need 3, 4, 5 matches in order to make up that single loss. And that's if you don't lose again in the meantime. So anyway, stick to that sort of principle and trading will be a lot easier and a lot more comfortable. So we've got more to come in just a moment, but if you haven't done so already, I would really, really love it if you could click the like button on this video. If you've made it this far in a video, chances are you probably like it, right? Also, while you're there, you might want to hit that subscribe button, but most importantly, hit the notification bell. You want to get notified as soon as those new videos come out so you can see them as soon as they are available. All right. Anyway, we're going to dive into another live example. And again, this is going to be an interesting one for you to check out because this is another trade which goes a little bit pear-shaped. Definitely not as smooth as the last trade you checked out. Anyway, let's get back into it right now. Burnley against Brighton from the Premier League, and it's just about to kick off. Brighton here, odds on favourites as you can see, and we're expecting goals in this one. So over 2.5 goals, a pretty strong price. Anyway, as you can see, we have covered a lot of scorelines here, mainly in favour of Brighton as you can see, but we've got those plan Bs with 1-1 and 2-2 and 1-0 to Burnley there as well. So anyway, let's see how this one goes in play. So just reached half time here. It is 0-0 as we can see. So yeah, not much has developed. It's not necessarily a bad thing for it to be 0-0 at half time. You can see we've obviously got 1-0 and 0-1 covered. So we're quite comfortable should anyone take the lead. But anyway, no action to take at the moment. That cash out's offering us, what, 10% return. So no action to take just yet. No movement on the market as you can see. Let's see what happens in the second half. 75 minutes on the clock. We finally got the breakthrough and it's gone to Burnley. So we're going to take immediate action to lay off this 1-0 to Burnley because this is obviously not the goal that we were ideally wanting because we wanted the goal in favour of Brighton. So we're starting to be a little bit more limited in what we can do on this trade. So we're going to try and lower the risk on this, which means we're going to sacrifice all the green on the 1-0, putting in that lay there on the 1-0 to Burnley, and we can get the risk down on this trade significantly because a 2-0 to Burnley at this stage of the match is going to pretty much bury us in this trade, okay? We would still have 2-2 alive, but to look for a 2-2 in this late stage is not great. But anyway, as you can see, we've now got this risk down to a potential worst case of a minus 43%. So that's not bad, okay? Ideally, we want an equaliser. Let's see what happens in the rest of the match. 79 minutes on the clock and we've got the equaliser that we were looking for. Brighton have levelled it and that is good news for us. So look, first things first, we're going to remove all the risk from this trade. Let's do that immediately because that Burnley 2-1 is a big danger for us. So anyway, let's just get that out of the market, and we're in an interesting position now where, look, obviously we've got green on 1-1, we've got green on 2-1 to Brighton. However, I can see from the way this match has developed and also just see from the XG that Burnley a little bit better than maybe we're giving them credit for in this one. So we can distribute some green a little bit, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to lay off half of this profit from the 1-1 because we don't want to go fully down to 0. And as you can see, if we lay off around half of that profit, it's going to give us profit should Burnley nick this late on, which is a distinct possibility, as you know, okay, as we've seen. So we've pivoted a little bit in this one. We started out this match favouring Brighton, but we're starting to favour Burnley in this one, okay? It's still a more ideal scenario for us, for Brighton to take the lead. However, we got some green on the Burnley side as well. Let's see what happens. There's 10 minutes left, plus time added on. Very, very late in this one, and it looks like it's going to finish on the 1-1, okay? And the good thing is, as you know, we've got profit on that. We've got around a 41% return on that 1-1. We were still covered, even if Burnley did go on and nick it. The big, nice profit would have been on that Brighton win, which was our plan A when we entered the trade. However, it's not going to materialise, so we're looking like we're going to win this with our plan B, which is all good, okay? Not every trade is going to go exactly to plan. This one definitely didn't go to plan, but we're going to walk out with a 41% return on our stake. So as you saw there, Burnley versus Brighton, 41% return on our stake. Not bad at all, considering it was a match which did not go to plan, or a trade which did not go to plan. And it is a good example of why the target score formula is so important when you're picking out those correct scores, okay? We've done quite a few videos on this. Remember, we did pick out our scores favouring Brighton, but we had a plan B covering that 1-0 to Burnley and the 1-1 as well, and we had to use that plan B. And you might have noticed as well, I mean, after it went to 1-1, we were in a position where we could have locked in around a 66% return on our stake, which would have been a very nice profit to take, considering how the match was developing, okay? It definitely wasn't going in favour of Brighton. I didn't mention it in the clip, but the XG was also heavily in favour of Burnley during the second half as well. So anyway, that was another reason why, with correct score market, I mean, that was a good little example of being prepared to change your position. We entered the match favouring Brighton, but you saw the final position that we took when it went to 1-1 was that we were trying to get some green on the Burnley side, anticipating that it could be Burnley that are going to be the team to nick that winning goal. A lot of people do almost fall in love with their pre-match position when they've done all their research and they want to just stick with it in play. However, sometimes you can see matches developing how you didn't expect, and a good solid football trader is not going to let ego get in the way. They're going to say, okay, well, I called it wrong before the match, let me adjust in play. And that's the beauty of the correct score market as well, is that you can adjust in play. It's pretty flexible, as you saw there. And it was just another example of how we did manage to profit when it went wrong. Do keep in mind, we entered this trade favouring Brighton. They were the pre-match favourite. We were expecting goals and a high-scoring match. Didn't develop. It was 0-0 until very late on. The underdog has scored late on, okay? We still managed to come out with a profit, and that just shows why the correct score market is such a great market to trade on. And as said earlier, if any of this correct score trading looks interesting to you, you want to learn more about it, make sure you get this free download. It's the Correct Score Mastery course prospectus. This will show you how you could potentially take things to the next level with your correct score trading. To get this free ebook, the link is in the description of this video. Just scroll below the video, click on it, fill out the form, and then we'll email the book to you. If you're on a big screen, you can scan that QR code and then fill out the form, and we'll email you the book also, okay? It's absolutely free, and it will be the next step towards potentially learning and mastering the correct score market. So if you've liked anything you've seen today and you do want to learn more about it, then that's the next thing to do, okay? Go grab a copy of that. As said, link in the description, or scan the QR code. Now, also, if you did like what you've seen today and you do want to learn even more and go even deeper, there should be a good video on the screen right now with even more detail. And I strongly advise clicking on that video and checking out. Go grab another nice cold beer, and I will see you in the next video.